You're listening to WorkWire, sponsored by Career Club and SHRM. Career Club has a range of services aimed at job seekers with an empathetic approach. Whether you are a job seeker yourself, know someone who is in job search, or an HR professional looking to bring a more empathetic approach to transitioning employees, check out career.club. If you are an HR professional seeking to enhance your skills, subscribe to SHRM and explore their extensive resources. Visit shrm.org. That's shrm.org.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bob Goodwin, and I'm the president of Career Club, joined by my good friend and co-host of the WorkWire, Johnny C. Taylor Jr., CEO and president of SHRM. Johnny, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Good to see you, my man, as always.
As always, it is a pleasure. I get energized when we do these. It's fun, and we've got a great topic today.
Yes.
So just to jump into it, I read an article recently in the Wall Street Journal where the CEO of Novartis has hired a new chief strategy officer. And a little bit of the background is Novartis was struggling with many of its big bets. That's the nature of pharmaceutical. Is you have to make big bets, and if they pay off in a big way. And if they don't, you have lost a truckload of money and opportunity along the way. So they were falling behind their competitors. And so what the CEO said was, this is such a great quote. I asked myself, if there was one person I would want sitting next to me, challenging our thinking, coming up with new ideas, why not pick the person whose reports I read anyway? And what he was talking about is a Wall Street analyst, a sell-side equity analyst who has the reputation for being critical, for pulling no punches, for not trying to coddle the CEO of the companies that they cover. I used to lead the Wall Street practice for my last company and worked a lot with these sell-siders. And sometimes, because you want access to the CEO, you might not be quite as aggressive as you want, because you want to be called on during the earnings call. You want access to their office. You want to be able to really get kind of the inside story in a legal, appropriate way. So when you become somebody that, like, dude, you're a pain in my butt. Like, all you do is criticize. Like, there's just sort of this natural human behavior of, I don't like you.
Right.
But what happened was that the Novartis CEO ended up hiring this Wall Street analyst. And I just think that it's a fascinating lesson in humility, the ability to say things aren't going right at the highest level of the company, not be defensive,
right,
and to look for help and to be open to feedback. So how would you start to unpack that a little bit as you understand this story?
Yeah, so it's I too found it quite provocative. And for all of the things that you've said, it's absolutely showing vulnerability as a leader, to acknowledge that things aren't going well, all of the stuff that you've said. And so there's a lot of upside. Three things immediately jumped out in my head. And I'm actually, instead of rattling off three of them, I'm going to do one at a time and get your reaction to it.
Sure.
So that CEO, by saying that, has acknowledged that all of the hiring he's done during his tenure, he's not hired or built a culture of people who can do this from the inside. Why must you go to the outside to get this? Why isn't it a part of your culture? That challenge culture is not built in. What is it, when I'm looking at the man in the mirror, in this case, the man is the CEO of Novartis, that I'd like to think and get your reaction to him saying, gosh, I created this. I have created an environment where I don't think there exist 1, 2, 10 people in this company who will do exactly this. Why do I have to go to the outside? What's that about? What culpability do I have in it?
So clearly, at some level, in a very real and important level, the CEO is responsible for the talent.
Absolutely.
My favorite business book is Good to Great.
Yes.
And one of the key principles of that is get the right people on the bus. Then we'll figure out what seat they need to be in.
That's
and so did you not have the right people on the bus? The thing is, though, is at some level, yes, if you've created a culture where it's just yesing the decision maker and just trying to please and protect your own position by not being controversial or whatever, that's not good.
That's right.
Having said that, we make the best plans we know how to do. And we don't know what the conversations were that led to the strategy that they were employing. Right. So there may have been a lot of disagreement getting to the strategy that wasn't working. Right. But at some point, the CEO raised his hand and said, well, what we all decided together isn't working. There's a voice out there that I listen to that I think might be good on our team. So, even if it is a problem, the first day to recovery is admitting you have a problem and doing something about it. So I would still give him credit, and I'm not even sure that they had a culture that wasn't open to criticism, but maybe just this guy's particular brand of fresh thinking.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair response, but I do think it's something we should all, our listeners should think about. As part of this process requires that you stop and ask yourself as a CEO. I do this often with my team. We as CEOs, our employees generally, especially the ones who want to keep their jobs and who want to be promoted, want us happy. And they want to give us what we say we want. And they naturally don't want to let us down or not give us what we want. So you have to be mindful as a CEO at all times. And I literally will, after a decision is made around the management team here at SHRM, and I said, stop. Are any of you saying this just because you think you know what I want? I force a conversation to pause the group and say, let's talk about it. Let's just make sure we're not doing this to get along, or you don't want to offend your colleague to the right, because we're such a collegial family-like environment that it's deemed not a good thing. So you as a leader have to ask yourself often, are people telling me what I want to hear because I'm the CEO, or are they telling me what I need to hear because I'm the CEO?
Yeah. So I got in trouble one time in a executive level meeting where basically I disagreed with the CEO. And but what I said is, I don't want to be right. I just want to figure out what is right.
I like that.
That is such an important, baseline to draw for people who are reporting to you when you're in a more senior position to people, is really encouraging.
That's right.
This critical, and not in the negative, but just, hey, tell me the truth. Yeah. Like, we have a shared objective here.
That's right.
Yeah. We have a shared objective here. So I do think what you're doing and that kind of mentality of laying out there, this is not about me being right. I do not want to be the wizard here. I want our best thinking. David Taylor, CEO of Procter & Gamble, former CEO now. Yeah. Love the guy. And one of his expressions is, none of us is better than all of us.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
And then actually, and I know this is a passion point for you, this is a very real way to make sure that you've got inclusion.
That's right.
Diversity, but this is a very tangible bit of inclusion evidence.
That's right. No, so that will be the first thing.
That's one.
Yeah, when I read the article, that was probably the first thing that stood out is, glad that you're doing this and that you went to the outside brave, but gosh, take a moment and say, why was it in an organization of Novartis' size, I didn't have internal people? And either I didn't recruit people who were predisposed to conduct themselves that way, or I didn't give people permission to do it without fear and retaliation. And so that's an opportunity. The second question that came to mind, and it is, on occasion, I've been tempted to hire the naysayer, to bring them into my team because I want challenge. Be careful, because that can throw off the equilibrium amongst your executive team. You don't want someone who is brought in exclusively to be the naysayer, the antithesis of you on everything, because
devil's advocate, that's not a role.
Right. You don't, I think, and I'd love you to react to that, because you can have, and then what happens is the rest of the team is looking around, and like, you could create a whole different dynamic and culture if this person is almost, well, two things could happen. The rest of them could start saying, well, God, what am I, liver mush? And then they start creating intentions to have with you, because if that's what you're rewarding, if that's what you value, this person, because they are incorrigible and will challenge you at every front, then you could end up with 8 people around the table doing that and then challenging each other. And you could you could screw up a pretty darn good culture in doing so.
Yeah, so that's a great point. Where my mind goes in that is, when people talk about, like, we're trying to make sure you're a cultural fit
right
here. I had somebody challenge that, and I've since read it in other places, where what we're really looking for is a values fit and a cultural add.
Yes.
So the person that brings this, kind of devil's advocate mentality, who doesn't just fall in line naturally questions the assumptions that are being put out there, but can do it in a way that is respectful to the group. They can do it in a way, which is, to me, the values fit. They can do it in a way that isn't dismissive of what other people are saying. They can do it in a way that we have to make a decision here at some point, and we're all going to get aligned that decision, even when you may not completely agree with it. That, to me, would be a value fit, but a cultural add, because I think that sometimes companies do suffer from the way we've always done it and that kind of mentality. And you look at, like, Elon Musk's algorithm, right. It's question the assumptions. Well, why do the windshield wipers need to be right there? Like he just questions every assumption, and you can get some real breakthrough innovation without breaking glass.
But Bob, okay, so let me push, because that's what we do on the WorkWire. Why build that in one person? How about say, everything that you've talked about, I want. So I need to get someone like Bob Goodwin, some really good professional executive coaches, and build this capability in everyone, not allowed. I'm going to draw an analogy of something I've been debating and thinking about lately, is organizations who want a chief diversity officer. And so you go out and you recruit someone to add to your team because we want to be a great diverse organization. Value, I get it. But many instances, what we found is the other people around the table will say, okay, I don't have to worry about that. That's that person's job. Mm-hmm. They will now take care of diversity. I'm going to go back to doing what I do. When we've seen diversity, inclusion, equity work, is when you build it into a cultural capability for everyone, an obligation and responsibility, not assign it to one person. So I'm going to ask you to just think about, why would I go out and get one person to do it, as opposed to, and it's actually a part A of my first question, as opposed to getting one person who sort of embodies all of that. If it's that important, then you want everyone around your table to develop that muscle.
Yeah, so I'm not sure I got to be careful talking with Johnny Taylor, because I'm going to get in the deep end of the pool and not be able to get myself out. But just sort of the premise of it's either or does it all live in one person? If we're introducing, a new quality to how we interact and thinking maybe more about an executive leadership team, and like, I don't want to blow up the C-suite because I brought in this person whose job it is just to raise hell and, make everybody uncomfortable. I don't know. That's a great idea. But if there is somebody that can be a role model for this quality that we're trying to build, and we go into it, I'm going to react to your chief diversity officer analogy.
I knew you would. I knew you couldn't resist it.
but encouraging that kind of a behavior, that's actually leadership. Yes. Right. So we've got somebody who's leading, in modeling a quality that I want more of us to embody, and then to start to make that's the cultural add part. Right. That now the culture becomes better. With the chief diversity officer, we've talked about this a little bit on the WorkWire. I just did an episode on Career Club Live that was very much around this as well. And it's diversity for diversity's sake is not necessarily a thing. Right. And that's why I love how you kind of flip DEI to start with I, that it's about inclusion, because it has to tie back to business results.
Yes.
We don't do it because if you said, well, we want diversity, you got to be like a 2-year-old. Well, why?
Right.
Well, because we need to represent more of society. Why? Well, because our customers look like the rest of society. So what? Well, we need to be innovating and meeting everybody's needs, not just one group's needs. Why? Because it's good for the business. That's how we grow. Now we're getting closer to why do we even want to do this? And I think that's why, where we've talked before, a chief diversity officer who's just sort of a placeholder for that idea, but it's not really, integrated and permeating the business, is probably why we're seeing companies press the pause button, as you say, and go, why are we doing this again? Is this really the right model? Did we even start with the right reasons for why we're doing this?
So, Bob, that's you answered, not surprisingly, you nailed it. That is the only point I was making. I raised this. You asked me, what did I think about? Three things came to mind, right? It made me think, gosh, there is also an opportunity to actually point out to be that cultural ad. So but in and of itself, we want to make sure that it's not he, therefore, is the person around the table
Right.
from that point forward. He's got to add to the rest of the team's capability. And individually, every one of those executives should ask themselves, why did my CEO think he needed to go to the outside to do this? What can I do better? Because obviously we're all failing together or we're all winning together. There's no such thing as like that guy won. All of us won. And so that's it. My third thing that came to my mind is it's just, I don't want to overthink it, but I think it does. We talk about strategy as if every person is not responsible for strategy, right? And so you bring this guy in from the sales side. I just want to caution anyone who thinks about doing this that you don't over-index either, because there is a buy side. And we talked about the difference between stakeholders. Like you can go out and take a point of view. Remember, that guy's job was to be a sales side guy. You've got to make sure that now he can pivot. Because while, yes, you can bring up the orientation, the mindset, you've been on Wall Street, is very different depending on what side of the aisle. And so I would just caution them that now that you bring this person in-house, you've got to make sure that they can morph, pivot, acclimate to the need to represent the fullest of the company. And you get what I'm saying? The specialist can be very dangerous sometimes. And this is not poo-pooing the idea. What we do on the Work Wire, our hope is to challenge and prod and make sure that we've thought about every angle here. How do you react to that?
Well, I mean, I'm going to speak super specifically just to the Wall Street piece of it first, and then we can move from that. But in the sell side, buy side dynamic, the buy side is the sell side's customer. The topic of what the research notes are about are the companies, but the way the sell sider makes money for himself or herself and the company is through the buy side. The buy side, who's buying their research notes, they're the ones who are saying, hey, you're an institutional investor, top rated equity analyst.
Right.
So they're going to have a natural understanding of the dynamics and why you don't want to alienate your largest shareholders, because that's not going to end well either. At minimum, it's going to be disruptive and expensive, so you don't want to do that. But I guess, Johnny, I'm thinking kind of like in terms of like sports teams.
Okay.
We're always evaluating: do we have the right players on the field? And if we're going to play the game a little bit differently, then do we need some different players that are more skilled in running that kind of an offense, or whatever the example would be?
Right.
And so maybe Bob was good enough as a passing guard and just running the plays, but we wanted somebody more like Steph Curry that can like drain threes from a mile away, because we're changing our strategy, and we need different players that can play that game.
So that's where my rub is, to pull that through. At the end of the day, if you were talking about a specific skill set, a technical skill set, a strategy person, operators may not be as strategic, lawyers may be. So yes, if you were bringing him in because we need someone to help be a strategic thinker, and that's a different technical skill set and worldview, got it. But what this article, or at least as what you took away from the article, and what I think I took away from the article, was I'm bringing this person in because they're willing to challenge. They're willing to not get along, just to go along to get along.
Oh, okay.
And so that, what bothers me is that cannot be, it's actually back to it can't be the responsibility of every person on the team.
So to pick up on that, just to tease it out, I don't know that this person's value proposition solely was the fact that they challenged. The fact is this person knows the industry.
Yes.
And so it wasn't just, you're a rabble rouser. You're willing to raise hell. Nobody else is. It's like, no, you've got a unique perspective and understanding of our industry. And that I keep seeing you get it right.
Yep.
I want you on my team.
That's what I was hoping. That's what we did all of this. I took you through it because, the headline is, oh gosh, it's so cool. He went and hired the not naysayer, but the challenger, as if the other people don't have to do this, even with the addition of this one person. What you're getting to is I think two things that you said. One, that person's presence should permeate the organization and lift the entire organization's ability to engage in that. And then there is a subject matter expertise that was missing from
100%.
So as long as that's it, we are not that we have to be aligned, because you and I, we love diversity, right? Sometimes we end in places, right? Diversity of perspective and the way we see the world viewpoint. But I love this for that reason. As long as we say there are two goals. One, he noticed and rightly questioned, do I have what I call at SHRM a lot, do we have a challenge culture?
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't, why? Sometimes I say, well, it's because me as the CEO, I'm not giving people permission to operate and be rewarded in a challenge culture. Sometimes I've hired people who frankly lack courage. And you and I talk about that a lot, especially in HR. So they just wouldn't do it even if they had the permission to do it. And then the third category is people who just don't know how to do it. Like they've not been trained and developed. That muscle has either atrophied or was never developed at all. Those figuring that out, adding him to the team, if his goal is to be a culture add, solves for it.
Yep.
I'm with you.
It's super quick. I'm going to do this in 30 seconds. Corporate Executive Board a few years ago published a whole thing called the Challenger Sale.
Yes.
And, maybe a lot of folks who are listening to this will be familiar with the Challenger Sale, but it was sort of the follow-on or the next generation after consultative selling.
That's right.
And the Challenger Sale basically says it's good when somebody goes, you know what, Johnny, I was thinking the exact same thing. What a great idea. We should probably do that. And old me would have been like, yes, Johnny agreed with me. Awesome. And what the Challenger Sale says is actually that's not the highest ground. Right. The highest ground is challenging make me think about this in a different way. I may still not agree with your conclusion or recommendation or whatever, but I value the fact that you have made me think about this in a way that was new and at least allowed me to understand this from a different perspective. And then I would, tell our clients, I used to tell my sales teams, like the reason that, a company pays McKinsey big money, tell me something I don't already know.
That's right.
Like if I already knew this, I don't need to pay you $25 million for this engagement to tell me what I already knew. Tell me something. It's the same in companies. If you're at a company that, appreciates, respects somebody that is willing, to use your word, courage, to stand up and go, not so much. Maybe there's another way of looking at this. Here's some data. Here's another experience I've had that might suggest something else. And again, how I delivered that is key. But a culture that I just want people to walk away from this knowing that the right folks will appreciate when you challenge their thinking, when it's done in a respectful, informed way. It's very high ground.
No, it's you are operating at your best when you have a truly healthy challenge culture. So I would, even if you're right, the how is important. As you know, you and I talk a lot about empathy. We talk about civility. Talk about dignity and respect in work and in one's workplace. And so I would just, the layer on top of all of this, and I don't know this guy and I'm assuming he's great, but sometimes the The person who's known on your team to be the challenger is a jerk. And that can be horrible for a culture when taken to its extreme. I think all of us have situational leadership. You and I agree on this. There are times when you lead differently.
Yeah.
I think that's okay. But if generally speaking, you have a culture where people are encouraged to be not civil and not be respectful, no matter how right you are, Novartis will have a different set of problems down the road, right? So you may have great products, but no one wants to work there. There's no esprit de corps. There's no morale, engagement, et cetera. So you got to find a balance. That's the job of the CEO and it sounds like the Novartis guy is really, as you pointed out, vulnerable to acknowledge it, to brave enough, when I talk about courage, to do something about it, because it requires courage to go to the outside and bring someone in who is so different from your existing culture. And then the real bravery is to talk about it so that people like you would read the article. He talked about it to a journalist, you read it, and here we are on WorkWire talking about it. This is 21st century leadership from the CEO.
There's just a few qualities to this that I think that the CEO exhibited. And let me just sort of tick them off real quick, and then would love to get your reaction. One is humility, to admit that there's a problem. So often you're the spin doctor and it's all great. Well, it's not all great. So the humility to admit, hey, this isn't going the way that we had hoped or planned or even invested for it to go. So that's one, humility to admit that there's a problem. Two is the courage to take a bold step. If you want just little incremental improvements, do little incremental things. You want step change, again, informed and a lot of caveats that you would wrap around that, but have the courage to take a bold step.
Yes.
The third thing is, to be willing to take a bold step and then actually take action. Right. So, it's pointless to have brought in this person just to listen to opine, write reports, do whatever they're doing, but we never really kind of followed through on what he was recommending that we do. And then lastly it's probably just sort of gets back to courage and commitment. Don't look back.
Right.
Just like quit second guessing, quit ruining, the years that we kind of did. Don't look back. Just keep moving. What do you think about any of that?
Love it all. Humility is at the base of it appropriately, because if you don't get past that, none of this starts to happen. It's like the first door that one has to open. The courage I'd already talked about. It is critical that you do this. Just the decision to, frankly, I think it takes a lot of courage to be humble. I mean, to show humility, to engage in that. The third one, though, is you cannot overstate the importance of execution. As Nike says, just do it.
Yeah.
We all sit around and we think about things and we have great strategies and we do all of that. You can have humility, you can have courage, but when it's time to do it, we fail on execution. So flawless execution is critical. And as you said, that final one, which resonates a lot with me, is not looking back. That's what someone said something, I'm probably not going to get it right, but it's like, that's why the windshield the front windshield of a car is larger than the back windshield or something like that. But the point is, you're supposed to be looking forward. I mean, that's the real goal. The back is the back. And there are lessons to be learned and all of that good stuff but stop looking backwards, because frankly, when you're looking backwards, you run a real risk of hitting someone in the front. Like, or you could slam into someone because you're so preoccupied with looking backwards. And most leaders are second guessing themselves, because let me tell all of the WorkWire people at the CEO level, most of us are seriously suffering from imposter syndrome. We may give off confidence, but every day we're making the best decisions we know with the best information that we can get. Yeah. We could be very wrong and we could lose our jobs for it. We could be embarrassed. Your daughter doesn't want to admit that you're a dad because you lost your job. It can be. So the pressures of making a decision, committing to it, are not insignificant.
Yeah. So again, I think one of the key things that I'll take away from this conversation and this scenario that we've been talking about is humility and courage. And then I really do appreciate, Johnny, what you're saying, though, about being a jerk just to be a jerk is not a good enough reason for anything. Right. Situational leadership. Sometimes I need to talk to you in a way that it's not in my preferred communication style.
Like that.
But right now, this situation calls for no ambiguity. I need to be extremely direct and clear about something. But the openness to try new things, to listen to new voices, that to me it's curiosity, it's a learning mentality. Again, I'm going to say the word humility too many times, but I don't have all the answers.
That's right.
That's why we're on a team. That's why I'm not a solopreneur, but we've got a big team. And I just think that there's so many lessons. Again, these aren't CEO lessons. This is at the line level of where the real work happens in companies.
Yep.
And everybody can participate at this level if they want to.
That's why the critical, this entire conversation is about, and I started with making sure that whatever comes of hiring this new person, that it is literally, that it seeps down into the organization such that you change the culture. Because what we want is, if Novartis has 20,000 employees, you don't want one person being the sort of role model. You want everyone in the shop to know that it's okay and in fact expected to help be more of a challenger.
And I'll say one last thing. The analyst who came in as the chief strategy officer also went on to say that he needed to learn how to modify his style.
That's my point.
To be able to fit into how they're going to best receive
That's right.
the benefit of his domain expertise, the way that he thinks about stuff. So it's a two-way street. It's not everybody needs to conform to this guy.
Right.
But he needed to conform to the container that he was put into as well. So,
or they would vote him off the island. It can happen before. You can be really smart, but you won't work here because we'll just collectively move you out of here. So no, that's really smart. And that's why culture is so important. Listen, I have so much fun today with you.
Absolutely.
This is a really interesting topic, and it's a little different. It's not pulled right off the headlines necessarily of the media, but it is such an important topic. So thank you for surfacing this.
Yeah, and thank you, Johnny, of course. And thank you, everyone, for listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, comment, like. It helps. And then if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, please rate and review. But mostly, we just appreciate you investing a few minutes of your day to listen to us here on The Workwire. Johnny, with that, have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you, everyone.
You too, my friend. Take care.
Check out career.club for personalized help with your job search. Visit shrm.org to become part of the largest human resources organization worldwide.